Katherine first met James in a dimly lit corridor at Massachusetts General Hospital during her residency, just after her night shift. While she was checking patient charts with an exhausted expression, James offered her a warm cup of coffee. That simple act of kindness would change both their lives forever. James was well regarded among his hospital colleagues. Not only was he skilled, but his gentle approach with patients earned everyone's trust. Katherine saw in him the kind of doctor she aspired to be. Gradually, they supported each other through the challenging years of residency. Patricia Gray's first words upon hearing about the engagement were impossible for her. A prominent figure in Boston's social scene, living in the upscale Beacon Hill neighborhood, Patricia believed Katherine, who had graduated medical school on scholarships and late-night jobs, wasn't a suitable match for her son. "That girl has no class. She lives like a charity worker. Despite being a doctor, she'll damage your future," Patricia would gossip to her friends during their elegant Sunday brunches at America's oldest country club. While sipping tea, she endlessly expressed dissatisfaction with her son's choice of bride. Even the engagement party preparations were kept minimal. Katherine's parents weren't invited, and the venue was filled with Patricia's friends instead. At the party, held in a historic Back Bay hotel, Katherine was treated like an outsider. Patricia's cold treatment continued afterward. At family gatherings, Katherine was seated at the same table as the servants and excluded from conversations. At Thanksgiving dinner, she was deliberately seated at the children's table, and sometimes she wasn't even invited to Christmas parties. Yet Katherine maintained a quiet smile through it all. Rachel, her sister-in-law, was even more blatant. As an Instagram influencer with 100,000 followers, she repeatedly made sly posts criticizing Katherine's modest attire while flaunting her luxury brands. "My sister-in-law is wearing what looks like second-hand clothes again. Where does her doctor's salary go? I guess you can't develop good taste without money," she posted. Rachel basked in superiority every time these posts received likes. Living at home with only 2 social media posts per week as her job, she couldn't understand Katherine's daily struggles. Rachel, who maintained a lavish lifestyle through sponsored content for luxury brands, looked down on her sister-in-law's modest living. When Rachel's engagement to David Morrison was announced, her arrogance reached new heights. Marriage to a sharp Goldman Sachs investment banker would elevate her status even further. She constantly posted on social media, showing off her 6-carat Tiffany diamond engagement ring. The engagement party was held at the Ritz-Carlton Boston, the city's most prestigious hotel. Katherine arrived in her usual navy Brooks Brothers suit. Rachel deliberately excluded her from photos, posting only pictures with select guests. No one paid attention to Katherine, quietly sipping champagne in a corner of the venue. The night before the wedding, Katherine's phone rang. It was Patricia. She had just finished her night shift at the hospital. "Make sure you dress appropriately tomorrow. David's father is a former UN ambassador. Your usual attire would be an embarrassment to the family. Oh, and I heard James won't be coming. How lonely that must be for you." Katherine could hear the malicious smile in Patricia's voice. She sighed deeply and quietly hung up. She had already decided to wear her usual outfit tomorrow. Her husband James was away at a medical conference, but she was determined to attend the wedding alone. Looking at the Boston nightscape through her window, Katherine contemplated tomorrow's wedding. In the quiet night illuminated by streetlights, she reflected on her secrets. No one knew about her humanitarian award or her relief work in Syria. She had endured her mother-in-law and sister-in-law's treatment all this time. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be the day when all truths came to light. The next morning in Boston dawned bright and clear. Luxury cars kept arriving at the Ritz-Carlton Boston's main entrance, with elegantly dressed guests stepping out. Since its establishment in 1927, this hotel had reigned as the social hub of Boston's upper class. Today, that tradition would continue. Katherine quietly stepped out of her taxi. She wore her usual navy Brooks Brothers dress with a single pearl necklace inherited from her mother. Though modest, her dignified presence stood out among the guests dressed in luxury brands. "Oh my, Katherine, a taxi?" Patricia wrinkled her nose at the hotel entrance. She was wrapped in a custom Dior dress, lavishly adorned with Harry Winston jewelry. Beside her, Rachel tilted her head like a swan in her Vera Wang wedding dress. "Mother, my sister-in-law really has no sense, and on my special day, 2. Rachel said with a malicious smile as her friends helped with final makeup touches, already posting the scene to Instagram stories. Katherine said nothing, simply nodding quietly as she headed toward the ceremony venue. Entering the banquet hall, she was struck by the chandelier brilliance. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, making the crystal chandeliers cast rainbow-colored light. Round tables that could seat 300 distinguished guests were arranged neatly. "Oh, Katherine, your seat is over there." Patricia pointed to a distant corner table. It was clearly meant for servants and unfamiliar distant relatives. She had been intentionally separated from where family members should normally be seated near the front. "Yes, I understand," Katherine calmly replied, walking to her assigned seat. Along the way, several waiters watched her with concerned expressions. They had overheard Patricia and Rachel's malicious conversations during last night's preparations. When she reached her seat, Katherine noticed what was placed before her. It was a silver dog bowl with a Tiffany stamp, like those sold in luxury pet shops. Inside was Origin, the highest-grade dog food, arranged as if it were a course meal. "Is this sufficient?" Patricia approached with a smile full of superiority. Behind her, Rachel tried to suppress her giggles. "Please enjoy your meal," Rachel added. Her mockery caused murmurs from surrounding tables, even among guests well-versed in upper-class etiquette. There was a sense that this insult had gone too far, but Katherine just smiled quietly. There was something mysteriously dignified about her expression. She gracefully spread her napkin across her lap and began to act as if nothing had happened. Her attitude momentarily confused Patricia and Rachel. The angry or humiliated reaction they had expected was nowhere to be seen. As the reception began and classical music played, the appetizer of lobster bisque was served. Only Katherine's table still had the dog bowl in place, yet she sat gracefully as if this were perfectly normal. "Madam, I apologize. I'll bring you proper dinnerware right away." The concerned head waiter rushed over. "Thank you, but this is fine," Katherine replied with a gentle smile. There was a strange confidence in her voice, as if this humiliating situation were actually going according to her plan. The reception proceeded solemnly. The groom, David, occasionally glanced worriedly in Katherine's direction. His father, former UN Ambassador Joseph Morrison, seemed to sense something as he watched Patricia and Rachel with stern eyes. "It's about time for the speeches," Katherine murmured quietly, just as the prime rib main course was being served. Her expression now held a certainty that hadn't been there before. The moment David stood up to approach the microphone, Patricia and Rachel's expressions changed. It wasn't a good change, especially for Patricia, who seemed to realize something as the blood drained from her face. David stood before the microphone in his navy tuxedo. His usually gentle expression now held a certain dignity and determination. All 300 guests turned their eyes toward him at once. His voice resonated under the crystal chandeliers. "Thank you all for gathering here today for our wedding. On this special day, I have something I'd like to share with everyone." Patricia's face lit up with expectation, wondering what heartwarming speech her son's best friend would give. Rachel, too, checked her selfie angle, preparing to record the scene. In February 2023, a hospital in Aleppo, Syria, was bombed. The sudden turn silenced the venue. Guests began to murmur, wondering why such a heavy topic was being brought up at a glamorous wedding. That day, many casualties were brought to the hospital. The bombing caused a fire that engulfed the building, leaving patients trapped in a desperate situation. David paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. But there was one doctor there. She repeatedly ran into the burning building, risking her own life. She kept rescuing patients, one after another. Katherine quietly closed her eyes. The memories of that day came back vividly. That doctor saved 32 lives, and just after rescuing the last patient, the building collapsed. The atmosphere in the venue began to change, particularly the UN officials and humanitarian organization representatives seated in the front were leaning forward, intensely engaged in the story. "That doctor's name is Katherine Gray." "Yes, the person sitting here now with a dog bowl placed before her." The shocking revelation took the venue's breath away. The blood drained from Patricia's face. Rachel dropped her phone. Katherine has saved thousands of lives as a leader with Doctors Without Borders. She is the recipient of the 2024 Humanitarian Contribution Award and has received special recognition from the UN Human Rights Commission. David's father, Joseph Morrison, quietly stood up. His presence as a former UN ambassador commanded the entire venue. I am well aware of Dr. Katherine Gray's achievements. Her dedicated work is highly regarded in the international community, and today I have witnessed with my own eyes the treatment she has received here. Joseph's voice carried barely contained anger. The social elite unanimously turned disapproving eyes toward Patricia and Rachel. Mother, Rachel. David's voice resonated through the venue again. You never understood who Katherine truly is. Most of her $350,000 annual income goes to medical aid activities. Her modest lifestyle is her belief and her pride. The president of the Boston Ladies Club stood up in the front row. Patricia, your actions have severely damaged our dignity. We may need to reconsider your club membership. At these words, Patricia's face turned pale. She could feel the social position she had built over 30 years crumbling with an almost audible sound. Rachel was desperately operating her phone. Critical comments were already flooding her Instagram, and sponsorship contracts with luxury brands were beginning to send cancellation notices. And now I must announce the most important thing. David's voice became even more solemn. I am canceling my marriage to a family that has continued to insult such an honorable person. At that moment, Rachel let out a scream. She collapsed on the spot in her pure white wedding dress. Patricia, too, sank into her chair as if losing all support. David, wait, there's a reason. Rachel's desperate voice no longer moved anyone's heart. New murmurs began among the guests. Without doubt, a new scandal would be added to Boston's social scene. Then a quiet voice resonated through the venue. David, may I have a moment? Katherine stood up. Her presence was dignified, as if she were a different person. The strength that hadn't wavered, even with a dog bowl before her, now touched everyone's hearts. Indeed, the actions of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are unforgivable. However, in the world I face daily, much more serious hatred and conflict claim many lives. Katherine's voice permeated the venue like clear water. What we need is to break the chain of hatred. Even at this moment, somewhere in the world, someone needs help. Can we afford to waste time on hatred when that's the case? David's father nodded deeply at these words. As a former UN ambassador, he understood their weight better than anyone. If you both sincerely apologize and promise to change from now on, I have no objection to continuing this wedding. Katherine's unexpected words silenced the venue again. Patricia and Rachel stared at her with unbelieving expressions. However, there is one condition. Katherine continued with a resolute expression. From now on, I want us to strive to understand and respect each other as a true family. Above all, please stop judging people solely by their social status and appearance. A deep silence dominated the venue. In that silence, something began to move greatly in Patricia and Rachel's hearts. The mask called pride was slowly peeling away. The silence was broken by loud applause from the venue. Everyone was touched by Katherine's tolerance and strength. Rachel stood up on trembling legs, clutching the hem of her pure white wedding dress. Large tears fell from her eyes. Not caring that her perfect makeup was running, she knelt before Katherine and bowed deeply. I am truly sorry. Her voice was filled with genuine remorse. Without a trace of her former arrogance, the mask she had worn, wrapped in luxury brands and performing a perfect life on social media, was now completely falling away. Patricia, too, stood up unsteadily. Her Hermes handbag, which she always carried proudly, hung limply in her hand. Katherine, too, her voice caught. All her social standing built over years, her reputation as a glamorous charity party hostess, had lost all meaning. Now, before her stood a real philanthropist, a true humanitarian. To think that someone so wonderful was the person I rejected as my son's partner. Patricia knelt beside Rachel and bowed deeply as well. It was a sincere gesture, without pretense, that no one had ever seen before. David quietly approached the two. His expression held a slight warmth within its sternness. Mother, Rachel, I have 3 conditions, he began in a clear tone. First, publish official apologies to Katherine on social media and in newspapers. Second, always attend family gatherings and make sincere efforts to repair relationships. And third, David paused momentarily. Looking intently into their eyes, both of you must participate in Doctors Without Borders volunteering activities once a month. I want you to understand firsthand the suffering of people and the preciousness of life. Patricia and Rachel answered, yes, in trembling voices. Their voices held a humility never heard before. In a corner of the venue, a waiter quietly wiped away tears. He had witnessed Patricia and others preparing the dog bowl last night. He was touched by this unexpected turn of events that he couldn't have imagined. Then David's father, Joseph Morrison, approached the two. Within his dignified bearing as a former UN ambassador, there was a warm compassion. Patricia, Rachel, everyone makes mistakes. But the true mark of the upper class is having the courage to acknowledge those mistakes and sincerely apologize. These words drew light applause from the venue. Even the Boston Ladies Club president nodded slightly. Katherine slowly approached the two. Her steps carried their usual dignified beauty. It was just a few meters from the seat with the dog bowl. But in that short distance, this family's future was about to change greatly. Mother, Rachel. Katherine gently placed her hands on their shoulders. As a doctor, I have seen many people suffering, and I learned that what can ease that suffering is not hatred but understanding and compassion. Her voice permeated the venue like clear water. From now on, I hope we can walk together as a true family. We each have our own strengths. Let's build a relationship where we can recognize and elevate those strengths together. New tears flowed from Patricia and Rachel's eyes. They were tears of regret and apology, but also tears of hope for a new beginning. David quietly took Rachel's hand. May we continue with the wedding? Katherine nodded with a gentle smile at this question. Loud applause erupted from the venue. It wasn't just celebratory applause, but warm applause celebrating the growth of human hearts and true reconciliation. The early summer sunlight again poured down on Boston,